It has been more than 3 months since Election Day, but voters in North Carolina's 9th Congressional District still don't know who their congressman is. Today, state election officials held the second day of hearings to determine whether they can certify the results, where Republican Mark Harris defeated Democrat Dan McCready by just 905 votes. Miles Parks from NPR has been inside the hearings, and he joins me now from Raleigh. Miles Parks, welcome to the NewsHour. So what are we learning? What are you hearing and learning in these hearings on what happened?
So the investigation is focused on really one man. McCrae Dowless is his name. He was a political operative hired by Republican Mark Harris's campaign, basically to help with get out the vote efforts. But state investigators have been laying out their case for the last 2 days, basically saying that his get out the vote efforts went a lot farther than the law allows. Normal get out the vote efforts on campaigns involve basically registering people to vote and then encouraging them to vote. Investigators say Dowless actually collected ballots, which is illegal in North Carolina, and a woman testified yesterday saying ballots she collected, she even went as far as filling in blank races that were not filled out by the voters.
So that's my question. What evidence has the state provided that proves that Mr. Dowless broke the law?
Well, we've heard from a number of voters who say they provided Dowless with ballots that were unsealed, and we heard from one specific woman named Lisa Britt, who's actually Dowless's former stepdaughter. She said Dowless paid her to collect ballots. That in and of itself is breaking North Carolina law. It's called ballot harvesting, and it calls into question a number of election integrity issues because there's questions about whether Dowless, if he was collecting these ballots, whether he turned in all the ballots that he actually did collect, or whether he manipulated them in some way. The numbers showed after the election, the absentee ballot numbers in Bladen County, where Dowless was based, were really skewed toward Mark Harris in such a way that it was really suspicious to election watchers nationally.
So is Dowless testified? Have we heard from him so far? The hearings go on another day at least, is that right?
Yeah, they do. And we heard from Dowless kind of yesterday. He was called to testify, but he declined. Basically, it was a really uncomfortable, tense moment where he stood up with his attorney, and his attorney basically said, if you have him testify, North Carolina law says he receives immunity for that testimony if you compel it from him. The state board went into a closed session, came out and said, we are not willing to provide immunity from prosecution for Mr. Dowless. Dowless is obviously in some real legal jeopardy, and they don't want to provide any outlet where he could get out of this.
So now I gather today there was testimony from someone who was defending him, though.
Defending him, sort of. Basically, Andy Yates is the man's name. He ran a political consulting firm that was the middleman between Dowless and Republican Mark Harris. He paid Dowless more than $100,000 for his Get Out the Vote services. Yates said he knew nothing about Dowless's illegal actions. He said he thought everything Dowless was doing was legal, and Dowless had assured him, so they spoke almost every single day, he had assured him that everything he was doing was legal. But Yates also said, after watching testimony yesterday, he doesn't know if he believes anything Dowless told him over the past year that they've been talking.
And the number of ballots that may have been mishandled in some way, is that a number that could override the margin that exists today? We said, what, 905 votes?
Right. 905 votes is the magic number that Mark Harris defeated Dan McCready by. It's really still unclear whether the number of ballots Dowless handled actually hits that number. We know that either Dowless or people paid by Dowless turned in registration forms for more than 1,000 voters, but it's still unclear how many ballots Dowless collected and how many he turned in. It's really unclear actually whether we're ever going to know that number. And Republicans say if the investigators do not show enough evidence to say ballots were affected to get even close to that 905 votes margin, then Harris should be certified.
Well, clearly a lot of eyes on these hearings, and as you say, they are going into tomorrow.
Yeah, they are. It's really unclear how long this is going to go. They've basically been, it was started out as potentially a 1-day or 2-day hearing. It's been extended to tomorrow. They say they have the room reserved till Thursday. We're basically taking this day by day. Testimony has been going fairly slowly. They've gone through less than a dozen witnesses, and there's dozens more that both candidates have requested to testify.
A lot of eyes on that hearing. Miles Parks with NPR. Thank you.
Thank you.